Hello and welcome to, well, what is this?
I don't know.
What is this?
When you were saying welcome, I was like, do we have a plan
welcome
for what
to
we're welcoming
Distance DIY Literacy. Hey! So Maggie and I were talking this week about our own experience jumping into distance learning and realizing that one of the things that I'm struggling with the most is feeling the lack of connection with the people that I'm working with my kids, with my teachers. So we realized that there is work that we have done in the past that might help us to connect more, to have our online lessons or our remote meetings feel a little closer than maybe they do right now with all the distance that we're facing.
Yes, and like all just like the influx of digital everything, right? All of a sudden it's digital me and a digital classroom and digital handouts. And Kate and I just talked about the importance of staying true to the analog during this time. And when we wrote the book DIY Literacy, it was all about different teaching tools that you can create with your students, for your students, to help bring a piece of you to the teaching of the day. And so one reason why the teaching tools that we use, usually it was day-to-day in the classroom, now it's day-to-day on the computer, is that they can help because the teaching tools that Kate and I talk about are very visual. We really aim for them to be helpful and clear. And my favorite part is that they're personal, right? They're like my handwriting, my funny jokes. And I think kids need that more than ever. Now that everything has become digitized, it's almost like, wait a second, where did my teacher go?
Oh, that just made me so sad.
No, but this can help.
It's true. This can help. We can help.
Right? So it's a way to do that. Okay.
So we want to take you quickly. This is meant to be really a reminder for those of you who've done this work with us before or have heard of this work. If it's not a reminder, if it's the first time you're encountering these tools, certainly there's the book, but also on our website, kateandmaggie.com, we have a series of videos that show you how to make these tools on academic skills. But we didn't want to do an academic skill today. We don't want to talk about reading and writing online anymore this rainy day. Instead, we are going to tackle a skill that we are finding very challenging currently, which is how to not look a wreck on your distance learning sessions. Exhibit A is right now. I feel like I really need a haircut, and all of you who are following me on distance learning are going to just see me just evolve into something different than I want to be. So we want to go through a couple tools through the lens of how not to look horrible on camera. The first tool that Maggie and I talk about quite a bit are just the straight up charts, the anchor charts, the instructional charts, the teaching charts, whatever you want to call them. And we just want to point out how in a distance learning lesson, a chart is really helpful, right? To just have something visual in front of you, even though you're recording this for your kids. Yes, you could upload this to Google something or other, but wouldn't it be nice just to have your handwriting up in front of them, something for them to look at when you're talking instead of your gray hairs and your strange haircut, like they could look at this instead.
Yes, and it also, for me, it's like having something visual up here, not on a slide where the kid can see my face and this tool that's in my teaching and my handwriting, where I can interact with it to say, okay, so today I'm teaching you this lesson. This one is how not to look horrid on your Zoom call. Remind yourself
just a list
of
strategies.
Go for it, Kate.
Check your lighting, check your camera angle, check your hygiene, at least from the top up. Although my hygiene really all the way through is poor today, but that's probably the strategy I need to work on. Check your facial expressions when you're working in the camera. Okay, so charts can still be really, really helpful when we're teaching remotely. The kids need our handwriting. They need a visual to look at besides our faces sometimes. And yet, like Maggie said, they need both, right? I'm getting frustrated when I share screen or screen share or click on a slide. And then, I don't know if it's the narcissism in me, but then I become this little box in the corner. I want both. I want my face and the chart.
Well, also too, it also keeps me anchored, which I think is really important in terms of digital learning. I mean, it's always really important to be clear and concise as we teach, but now more than ever. So having an anchor chart that lists the strategies that kids can use or the steps that they can take can be helpful.
Here we go. Next tool. is a demonstration notebook. Now, typically a demonstration notebook is a sketchbook that you have full of lessons that are ready to go and interact with your kids. But in this context, we're talking about the same form potentially being on a piece of chart paper or on a dot cam that you're making with kids.
Or you could potentially digitize it, right? So a demonstration notebook is, you know, you saw that chart. It was like, here are 4 strategies or 4 ways that you cannot look horrible on your Zoom call. And maybe I realized that some students, a handful of students, really need help with one of those strategies. So I might record a small group session, or even be brave and do one live through gathering with just a few students and saying, okay, the reason I called you all together is that we're going to focus on our face. We're going to focus on our facial expressions while we were in this digital space for as long as that we're in. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I catch myself in that box looking like this. And for those of you, I'm not going to move that closer for you to see, but I respect you if you push pause and just zoom in.
Zoom in.
And I've annotated what can sometimes happen, right? With our facial expressions, we can appear dead in the eyes. Depending on our camera angle, we can get that like double chin, which is only getting more double.
Wow,
as this quarantine is continuing. Also too, like if I'm not connecting as much as I can and being aware of my facial expression, it can look like, as this person is teaching, am I shopping online? Am I checking the weather? I'm not sure. So instead of this, you can try, and a demonstration notebook is basically like, okay, I've gathered you 3 together, or I've recorded this pre-taped session because this is a problem that many of us fall into. And I'm gonna give you a choice of 3 strategies to fix that problem. We can lift our chin, we can smize, copyright Tyra Banks, smile with our eyes, make eye contact with the camera, and we can nod, give a thumbs up, smile, and do it in a more exaggerated way because everything needs to be more exaggerated. We really want to rev up our personalities when we're communicating and teaching on screen.
Beautiful.
So usually it's like, I love these because this page I can keep forever. And I can say, okay, Kate, we're going to fix your face, right? We're going to pick a strategy to use. Now that we're in the digital world, right, this might be kids record a 30-second video of them trying the strategy, or they could be live typing in the chat box, or they could even submit something longer on a digital drive.
I know one teacher who's using demo notebooks online like this, and she is keeping the Post-its up here because the kids understand what the Post-its are for. It's where they're trying, and she's asking kids to come to the small group meeting or the lesson, because this could also be a mini lesson format if you needed it to. She's saying come with Post-its, right? So that she's like, okay, everyone grab your Post-it and see how visual that is. Again, it's just visual, it's familiar. And then write down your thinking on it and then hold it up to the camera, right? So it doesn't have to be some verbal thing. We can just hold it up and still use this familiar material where it doesn't feel quite so computerized.
And then you can get the feedback right away, right? Because all of us are struggling to do like 3 full-time jobs in one 24-hour period. And so I love that idea too. It's like a teacher thought of that, right? To be like, quickly, I want to give you feedback right here in the moment.
Hold it up. Now I get to coach you. Okay, off you go.
Love it.
So demo notebooks still can be used. They just change shape a tiny bit. The third tool we wanted to throw out there that has been really, really, really helpful to people are learning progressions, and specifically right now, especially the way Maggie and I have talked about them in DIY literacy, microprogressions. The idea that you take a skill like camera angle and you show kids what the beginning level of that skill looks like, the intermediate level of that skill, or the advanced level of that skill. And the important thing about progressions is that they are super clear, super kid-friendly, that you have both the criteria and an example above it, so that kids, as they're working on character analysis or elaborating in an essay, can look at their work, look up at the progression, or look in their drive at the progression that you send to them and say, oh, I'm here, I want to try to get to here. So in our example, in the beginning level, top of your head can sort of be seen, right? You're talking like this, and it's very shadowy. You can't really see anything. It's murky and scary in there. And then middle, sort of where we want all the kids to get to, is I could see their faces, just the camera's a little wonky, right? It's underneath or something like that. And then the light is clear, but it's still like a strange shade, or it's like green or gray or something. And then our advanced level, what we're all striving for. I just want to point out my artistic skills.
I'm really impressed. I think we need to keep this one up.
Maggie printed out a photograph of herself, which was like pretty high level.
I did. But because I couldn't draw like you.
Not many people can. Not many people can draw like me. So higher level, face is seen slightly above, or you're working on your chiseled chin action, if you can get that. Light is bright, warm, and soft, etc. You get the idea. So this is a silly example on a skill like camera angles on Google Meets or Zoom meeting. But we want to offer up kids ways to do some self-assessment and some self-pushing in this time, because I can't get to every kid at the rate that I would love to. And when I do have time with kids, what we're noticing with our own son is when he's with his teacher, he really wants to be with his teacher.
Yes.
He's concentrating less on the teaching sometimes as he is on just connecting with her. And so for him to have tools that he can use with his teacher, they can use with us if we're able to, can make a lot of that feedback question, like how do I give kids feedback when we're doing distance learning? The quickest answer we have right now is use a tool like a progression.
100%, yes. And how do I make sure that there are multiple access points or access entryways into this lesson? This feels like something worth the time, right? Because all of us are doing more prep than we ever have done, right? We're just exhausted. And so this feels worth prepping, because then I'm creating this anchor tool that kids can go back to say, we're not all going to interpret character in one pathway, right? We might be at different shades of that performance. And this way, kids can get active on the process and not just wait for me to tell them kind of like, this is where you are, kid.
I will say also the last thing before we sort of close out, these are the 3 tools we want to throw out there to you, remind you of. In the work that we've been doing with districts on creating these tools for distance learning, what's been really nice is that we're starting to create tools that by necessity have to be even clearer, even simpler, even more accessible to kids, because they're going to be accessing them at home with lots of distractions and stuff and all the stuff that's happening for all of our students. And what we're realizing as we're doing that is that the work we're spending now to make a distance learning progression, we're actually like, oh, that's a better progression for next year. And so it doesn't feel like temporary work, which has demoralized me a little bit sometimes. Like I'm working so hard for just right now. Actually, the work we're doing is going to feed into our units next year and make them even better. So that's been kind of exciting.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
That's it.
If you just needed a reminder, then yay, go use your teaching tools when you're doing your lessons online, when you're meeting with kids online. If this wasn't a reminder and you're not exactly sure what we're talking about, you can check out our book. But also, again, we do have videos on our website that go through each of these tools, multiple versions of it.
There's like 8 of them, and they're 15 minutes long, short and sweet, give you the examples. It's definitely a resource that you can check out.
Yeah.
And
we wish you luck. Wait till next week when my hair is even puffier than it is right now.
That will be a good time. Happy teaching.
Take care, everybody.